Story: The Whistling Scarecrow. Sheaf of Rice Section 1. The Whispering Wind and the Village of Dullbrook. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village called Dullbrook, the days passed slowly, like clouds drifting across the sky. Children played in fields, farmers tended to their crops, and the wind sang softly through the wheat. Dullbrook was not a place of excitement or adventure, it was a place of peace. At the very edge of the village stood an old, worn-out scarecrow. Perched in the middle of Farmer Tobin's wheat field, it had long straw arms that pointed in different directions, a floppy hat patched with cloth, and a stitched-on smile that had faded with time. The birds didn't fear it anymore. They perched on its shoulders and sang to it, as if it were one of their own. But there was something strange about the scarecrow, something no one could explain. On windy nights, when the moon was high and the stars blinked quietly in the sky, some villagers claimed they heard a whistle. Not a sharp or harsh whistle like a storm, but a gentle tune, soft, slow, almost like a lullaby. It seemed to float through the air, coming from the fields. "It's just the wind in the trees," said the grown-ups. "It's the ghosts of old farmers," whispered some children. But one girl believed something else. Her name was Lena, a curious, kind-hearted girl with bright eyes and a braid always falling over her shoulder. Lena loved walking past the fields on her way to school. She often stopped to talk to the birds and sketch flowers in her notebook. But most of all, she loved the scarecrow. "It's not just a pile of straw," she told her friends. "It listens when I talk to it." Her friends giggled. "Do scarecrows have ears now?" Lena didn't care. One breezy evening, as the sky turned orange and purple, she sat by the fence and watched the scarecrow sway gently in the wind. That's when she heard it for the first time, a whistle. Clear, soft, and almost familiar. She leaned closer. The tune drifted across the field like a feather on the breeze. Her heart skipped. It was a lullaby, one her grandmother used to hum when Lena was very small. She ran home, eyes wide with wonder. "Mama, the scarecrow, it whistled Grandma's lullaby." Her mother chuckled. "You've got quite the imagination, Lena." But Lena knew it wasn't imagination. The scarecrow had whistled. And not just any tune, it was her lullaby. That night, as the wind rustled the trees and the wheat danced beneath the stars, Lena stared out her window at the field. The scarecrow stood still, silent, and yet something about it felt alive. She made a quiet promise to herself. "Tomorrow night I'll go back, and I'll find out the truth." Sheaf of Rice Section 2. The Midnight Whistle. The next evening, long after the village had gone to sleep, Lena sat wide awake, watching the moon climb higher into the sky. The wind was beginning to hum again, soft and steady. The moment she had waited for had arrived. Carefully, she slipped out of bed, grabbed her lantern, a small blanket, and her sketchbook, and tiptoed across the creaky wooden floor. Her heart thudded as she crept out the back door and into the cool night. The field stretched ahead, silver in the moonlight. The scarecrow stood tall in the center, just a shadow among the gently waving wheat. Lena found a spot near the fence, wrapped the blanket around herself, and waited. The wind brushed past her ears like a whisper. Then it came. A faint whistle, carried on the breeze. Soft at first, almost unsure. The same lullaby, note for note. Lena held her breath. It wasn't just the wind. The tune was too perfect, too familiar. And then something even stranger happened. The scarecrow moved. Not like a person. Not walking or jumping. But its head turned, slowly, toward Lena. Its stitched-on smile looked brighter somehow, and its straw arm lifted just a little with the wind. Lena froze. Her lantern flickered. Then a voice, gentle, low, and woven into the wind, spoke. "You remember the song?" Lena's eyes widened. Who are you?" There was silence for a moment, then the voice returned, as soft as leaves rustling. "I was called Theo long ago. I sang songs to the crops. I kept the crows away with my tunes. The villagers loved my stories until one did not." Lena stepped closer, clutching her lantern. "What happened?" "A sorcerer came to Dullbrook. He didn't like laughter. He hated music. He wanted silence, stillness.
So he cursed me.
turn me into this. But he gave me one small gift, or perhaps a cruel joke. I could still whistle. Only when the wind remembered me. Lena's heart ached. That's why I hear you when the wind blows. Yes, Theo whispered. You listened. You heard the song when no one else did. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Is there a way to break the curse? The field fell quiet. Only the soft swish of wheat remained. Then Theo's voice returned. The curse can only be broken by one who truly listens not just with their ears, but with their heart. Lena placed her hand on the wooden fence. I'll listen, she said firmly. Every night if I have to. A soft, thankful whistle drifted from the Scarecrow's mouth. A warm breeze wrapped around Lena like a hug. She didn't know exactly what she had to do yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't imagining it. The Scarecrow was real, and it needed her. She Favreis Section 3. The Listening Heart. Night after night, Lena returned to the field. She brought her sketchbook and filled its pages with notes, symbols, and melodies. Whatever the Scarecrow whistled, she recorded. Sometimes, Theo's whistles were bright and cheerful, like birdsong. Other times, they were slow and sorrowful, like rain tapping on windows. Lena began to hum the tunes around the village. The birds followed her, chirping the same melodies. Even the crops near the Scarecrow's field began to grow faster, greener, taller, healthier. Some villagers noticed and whispered, Farmer Tobin's field looks better than ever. What's that song the little girl keeps humming? But still, no one believed her story about the Scarecrow. One morning, Lena's parents found her sheet music scattered across the table. You've been sneaking out? Her mother asked, shocked. To talk to a scarecrow? It's not just a scarecrow. Lena protested. His name is Theo. He was cursed. But her father frowned. Enough with the stories, Lena. You're not to go near that field again. Lena's heart sank. That night, she stayed in bed, staring out her window. The wind blew hard, and the wheat danced wildly. She could almost hear Theo's whistle, trying to reach her. Then, crack. A loud sound echoed through the night. Lena shot up. A storm had rolled in. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the Scarecrow's post bent dangerously in the wind. No! Lena gasped. Without thinking, she grabbed her lantern and raced into the storm. Rain lashed her face, and the wind howled like a wild beast. The wheat field was nearly flattened. The Scarecrow was barely standing. Theo's hat flew off, carried by the storm. His arm broke loose, hanging by threads of straw. The post creaked again, ready to fall. Lena ran to him. She wrapped her arms around the base of the post and held on tight. I'm here, Theo. I'm listening. But there was no whistle. Only wind. Only rain. Tears mixed with the storm as Lena looked up. Please, she whispered. Please don't go. And then, she remembered the lullaby. The very first one Theo had whistled. The one from her grandmother. She began to sing. Softly, shakily at first, then louder. Her voice rose into the storm, carrying the melody the Scarecrow had taught her. The very song that had started it all. The wind suddenly changed. It circled around them, gentle now, swirling with a glowing light. The Scarecrow began to shimmer. Straw fell away like dust in the wind. And then, standing in the place of the Scarecrow, was a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. His clothes were old and tattered, but his face was full of life. Lena stepped back, stunned. The man bowed his head and said softly, Thank you for listening. She Favreis Section 4. The Song That Saved the Fields. Morning arrived slowly over Dullbrook. The storm had passed, leaving behind damp fields and broken fences. But something else had changed too, something no one could explain. When the villagers awoke, they saw Lena walking back into the village, muddy, wet, and tired, but smiling. Beside her walked a man no one recognized. His clothes were stitched and faded, his boots worn, and his hands calloused like a farmer's. But his eyes were kind. And his whistling was beautiful. At first, the villagers stared in silence. Then Farmer Tobin gasped. It can't be. The man smiled gently and said, "It's me, Theo." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Theo? The farmhand from years ago? He disappeared. That was decades ago. Impossible. Lena stepped forward. He was never gone. He was here all along. Cursed to be the Scarecrow. And he whistled in the wind, hoping someone would listen. Theo nodded. And she did. He told the villagers everything, the jealous sorcerer, the curse, and the lullaby that broke it. Lena had listened not just with her ears, but with her heart. She had brought him back. Some villagers wept. Others clapped. Farmer Tobin simply opened his arms and hugged Theo tightly. "Welcome home, old friend." From that day on, Theo lived at the edge of the field he once guarded. He sang to the crops and told stories to the children. He taught Lena how to hear the secrets in the wind and how to plant seeds with songs. The Scarecrow's old post was left standing in the field, not as a warning, but as a monument. The hat was returned, placed carefully on top, and the birds still came to visit, whistling back the melodies they had learned. Each year, on the same stormy night Lena had sung to save him, the village held a festival called the Whistling Night. Lanterns were lit, stories were told, and the fields were filled with song. Every child learned the tune Lena sang, the one that saved Theo. And Lena? She grew to be a storyteller just like Theo. She carried a book of songs and a heart full of wonder. She always said, "Magic is real. Sometimes it's just hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice." People who passed through Dullbrook would sometimes stop at the field, hearing a faint whistle on the wind. They'd ask, "Where's that coming from?" The villagers would smile and answer, "That's just the wind, or maybe an old friend, saying hello." Glowing star final line, narration ending. And so, in the quiet village of Dullbrook, whenever the wind dances through the wheat, it carries the tune of a scarecrow song, a brave little girl, and the magic of truly listening.